The Cursed School, December 3, 2023. Redwood High School, Virginia. Redwood High School was one of the oldest and most sinister schools in Virginia. Built as a monastery in the 1800s, the building changed hands several times over the years, eventually becoming a high school. However, the school was known not only for its classes, but also for strange events. Whispers echoing in the hallways at midnight, items suddenly disappearing, doors opening when no one was there. But the scariest of all were the stories told about the locked biology lab in the basement. Rumor has it that in 1965, a student named Ethan Carter went down to the basement for a test of courage at midnight and never came back. Those who searched for him could find no trace, but the next day, a photo of Ethan with his eyes erased appeared on the classroom bulletin board. From that day on, students who stayed at the school at night reported hearing strange noises coming from the basement. Sam, Chloe, Derek, and Megan had been hearing these stories for years, but they didn't believe any of them. But one night, their curiosity got the better of them and they decided to sneak into the school and explore the basement. When it was past midnight, they forced their way in through the back door of the school. Were dimly lit, but there was an eerie silence. Their footsteps echoed in the high-ceilinged hallway. When they opened the iron door to the basement, the smell of dampness and rotting flesh burned their noses. As they carefully descended the steps, they saw words carved into the walls years ago. Go back ... run ... Don't wake him ... double quotes, as if someone had tried to get out of here years ago but had failed. They must have written these to scare me, Derek said with a laugh, but his voice was shaking. When Chloe turned on her phone's flashlight and walked forward, she suddenly saw an old table full of glass bottles. In the middle of the table was an old notebook with yellowed pages. Megan picked up the notebook and carefully opened it. Inside was the name of Ethan Carter, who had disappeared. The writing in the notebook became increasingly irregular as the pages progressed, brownish stains seeping through the letters. It was as if someone had tried to write something just before they died. At that moment, scratching sounds were heard coming from the corner of the basement. Then, a voice that almost sounded like a whisper echoed, "You found me ... double quotes." Everyone froze for a moment. Their breaths were held. A shapeless, long-fingered hand emerged from the darkness. Behind it, a figure with no eyes and rotting skin, Ethan Carter. The boy who had disappeared decades ago was no longer even human. A strange smell was emanating from his body, filling the air with a putrid air like the earth of the dead. Chloe screamed. Derek quickly pulled back and hit his back against the cold stone wall. The figure made a muffled, groaning sound and raised his hand. Sam looked around wildly and quickly closed the notebook on the table. Suddenly, a wind shook the basement. Old jars fell from the shelves and broke, scattering glass everywhere. The figure was thrown into the air with a scream and disappeared into the darkness. The basement went silent again. The four friends headed for the door, trembling with fear. But what they saw when they opened the door wasn't the hallway they had entered the school. The walls of the hallway were blackened, the desks were upside down, and there were chains hanging from the ceiling. They looked at each other in panic. Chloe pointed to an old photo on the bulletin board, her eyes wide. There were 4 students in the photo: Sam, Chloe, Derek, and Megan. But there was one more person, Ethan Carter, and his eyes, he was there now. At that moment, the school bell rang deafeningly in their ears and the lights came on in a dazzling brightness. When they blinked, they found themselves in the hallway, lit by the first light of morning. The whole school looked normal. They looked at each other, afraid. Was it real, or was it just a nightmare? But the next day, a new photo appeared on the school bulletin board. An old, dusty frame. It read, "Graduates of 1965. And right in the corner, next to the 4 students, Ethan Carter was smiling. But at least they were alive, and that was a happy enough ending.